Welcome back to the Divine Frequency Online Podcast. You know, we love to take deep dives into all sorts of spiritual concepts and practices.
It's always an adventure.
Today, we're going deep into the world of the higher self.
Oh, this is a good one.
I'm so excited to unpack this with you. We've got two really interesting sources to draw from today. First, we have this blog post by Sydney Smith.
She's great. I love her practical approach to spirituality.
Right.
Yeah.
And she lays out this 5-step process for connecting with your higher self.
So we'll get into all that good stuff.
And then we've got this YouTube video by The Alchemist.
Always a bit more esoteric, but super insightful.
Exactly. So we're going to kind of weave those two perspectives together and see what we discover.
Sound good?
Sounds amazing.
Let's do it.
All right, so first things first. What are we even talking about when we say higher self? Like, what is this thing?
Right, because it can sound kind of vague and, well, out there.
Sydney Smith describes it as this source of wisdom and support within us. And this is key, something we can access right now. It's not like some future idealized version of ourselves. What do you think about that?
I think it's a really important distinction. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about tapping into a part of ourselves that's already there.
It's like we already have all the answers. We just need to learn how to listen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And The Alchemist actually adds another layer to this, drawing on some theosophical teachings.
Oh, get a little mystical on us.
They refer to the higher self as Atma Buri. It's like the first individual expression of your spirit emanating from source, from God consciousness.
Okay, whoa, that's a mouthful. Can you unpack that a little?
Okay, so imagine like the source of all creation as this pure energy, pure consciousness.
Okay, I'm with you.
From that source, individual sparks of consciousness kind of emerge. Those are our higher selves.
So it's like we each carry a piece of that ultimate source within us.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it that way.
It is. And The Alchemist uses this great analogy.
I love a good analogy.
They say to think of the higher self as the director of your life.
Oh, okay.
This director has a bird's eye view, sees the bigger picture, and is guiding us towards experiences that ultimately help our souls grow.
I like that. It kind of reframes those times when something seemingly bad happens, but then later on, you realize it led you to something amazing you never would have expected.
Totally. That's your higher self at work, subtly guiding you towards growth and fulfillment.
Okay, so I'm buying it. Our higher self is this incredible source of wisdom and guidance. But how do we actually embody that? What does that even look like?
Yeah, how do we bring it down from the clouds, right?
Sydney Smith talks about this in her blog post. She shares how she overcame self-doubt by aligning with her higher self.
I remember that part. She says it led her to feel like she was living her dream life.
That's what we're talking about. So it's not just a mental concept. It actually impacts our experience of life.
It's about bringing that wisdom into our everyday actions, our thoughts, even our emotions.
Becoming the fullest expression of ourselves, not some totally different person.
Right. And The Alchemist actually describes the higher self as a multidimensional being, like it exists outside the limitations of our physical reality.
Whoa, okay, things are getting a little woo-woo here. Multidimensional, huh?
Think of it this way. We exist in the physical world, but our consciousness, our energy, it's not limited to just this dimension.
Okay, I can kind of wrap my head around that.
Our higher self exists in this realm of pure consciousness where possibilities are limitless.
So by connecting with it, we're kind of expanding our own consciousness, opening ourselves up to a wider range of experiences and potential.
Exactly. It's about tapping into a source of infinite possibility.
Okay, so how do we actually start tapping into this amazing potential? I know Sydney Smith outlines a 5-step process, right?
She does. And the first step is all about grounding, which is perfect since you mentioned feeling a bit woo-woo.
Grounding, huh? So like bringing ourselves back down to earth?
Exactly. It's about feeling present in your body and connected to the earth. Both Sydney Smith and The Alchemist talk about this a lot.
Makes sense. It's hard to hear that inner wisdom if we're all up in our heads, overthinking everything.
Right. Sydney Smith suggests things like nature walks, mindful breathing, or even just physical activities.
Things that get you out of your head and into your body.
Yes. And The Alchemist would say it allows you to anchor those higher frequencies into the physical realm.
I love that. It's like tuning a radio to the right frequency before you can hear the music clearly.
Perfect analogy. So we've got our feet on the ground. What's next?
Okay, so step 2 in Sydney Smith's process is connecting with your divine team. Now, for anyone who's feeling a little skeptical, stick with us here.
We promise it's not as out there as it sounds.
Basically, it's about recognizing that we're not alone on this journey.
Exactly. We have a whole team of spiritual support just waiting to help us.
So what does Sydney Smith say about this divine team? Who are these guys?
She describes them as guides or energies that offer us support and insight. It could be angels, ancestors, spirit guides, whatever resonates with you.
So it's like having a whole cheering section in the spiritual realms.
Exactly. And it's not about blindly following someone else's dictates. It's about opening yourself up to a wider perspective.
How do we actually connect with this divine team?
Sydney Smith suggests practices like meditation or prayer, just creating space for stillness and receptivity.
So it's about intentionally opening the channels of communication rather than waiting for a sign or something.
Exactly. And, the alchemist would likely add that like attracts like in the energetic realm.
Oh, I like that.
The more you cultivate that high vibrational state through practices like meditation.
The easier it becomes to connect.
Yes. To your divine team and to your higher self.
So step 3 in Sydney Smith's process is all about strengthening your intuition
That inner voice, that gut feeling we all have.
that sometimes we ignore.
Exactly. And she emphasizes that this is crucial on the path to aligning with your higher self.
Yeah. She says it's about learning to trust that inner knowing, even when it doesn't make sense logically.
Which can be hard. We're so conditioned to rely on logic and external validation.
We are. So how do we actually get better at listening to our intuition?
Sydney Smith recommends practices like journaling, self-reflection. Pay attention to those subtle feelings, those gut instincts. Notice them, then act on them, even in small ways at first.
It's like we have to build that trust muscle step by step.
Exactly. The more you practice, the stronger it gets.
And the alchemist actually talks about this too. They say the more you connect with your higher self, the more refined your intuition becomes.
It's like tuning into a clearer signal, a more direct line to that higher wisdom.
Now, if you're listening to this and you're feeling like, whoa, this is a lot, don't worry. We're going to break it down step by step.
We've gotcha.
And if you're feeling a little overwhelmed and you're looking for some extra support, we highly recommend checking out etherealenergeticvibes.com.
It's an amazing resource for those who are just starting out on this path.
Tons of great stuff on there, guided meditations, journaling prompts, all sorts of things.
Definitely worth checking out.
So we've covered the first 3 steps in Sydney Smith's process: grounding, connecting with your divine team, and strengthening your intuition. But there's more to come.
We're just getting started.
We'll delve into the final 2 steps in part 2 of this deep dive. So stay tuned.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to our deep dive on aligning with your higher self.
We've already covered so much ground, it feels like we've built this solid foundation for this journey. We talked about grounding, connecting with our divine team, and strengthening our intuition.
Yeah, it's amazing how much we've already uncovered.
And now I feel like we're going even deeper into these more creative and expansive aspects.
Totally.
I'm excited. What's next in Sydney Smith's process?
Okay, so step 4 brings us to visualization and meditation.
Oh, I love both of those. But how do they, specifically help us connect with our higher self?
So Sydney Smith emphasizes that visualization techniques can help you create this really clear picture of your desired state.
Okay, so picture it, right?
Exactly. Imagine yourself embodying those qualities of your higher self. Wisdom, clarity, peace, whatever resonates with you.
So we're not just, daydreaming. There's an actual energetic component to this.
Totally. By vividly imagining it, you're aligning your energy with that vibration, you're drawing it closer.
So it's like we're calling it in.
Exactly. And meditation goes hand in hand with visualization.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It quiets the mind, right? And allows those visualizations to really take root. It fosters a deeper connection with your inner world where you can more easily access the guidance of your higher self.
It's like creating this sacred space within yourself where you can actually connect and communicate with your higher self.
Beautifully put. And the alchemist would probably say visualization and meditation help you transcend those limitations of the physical realm and access those higher dimensions of consciousness.
So we're tapping into this expanded version of reality, not just visualizing a better version of ourselves.
Exactly. It's about aligning with that infinite potential that exists within you and all around you.
This makes me think about the law of attraction, the idea that what we focus on, we attract into our life.
Yes, that's a great connection.
So by focusing on these qualities and experiences we desire, we're kind of energetically aligning ourselves with them.
And making them more likely to manifest in our lives.
But visualization and meditation become these powerful tools for conscious creation.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not just about material things. It's about cultivating those inner qualities that will naturally attract the experiences and relationships you desire.
Okay, so we've grounded ourselves, connected with our divine team, we're strengthening our intuition, and we're starting to play with visualization and meditation. What's the last piece in Sydney Smith's process?
The fifth and final step is about identifying your ego triggers.
Ah, those pesky ego triggers. So becoming aware of the things that knock us out of alignment with our higher self.
Yes. Sydney Smith talks about how important it is to recognize when fear, doubt, or self-judgment are taking over.
Oh yeah, those are the big ones. It's like we get caught in these negative thought patterns.
Right. They can keep us stuck in old habits and those limiting beliefs.
Totally. And The Alchemist actually talks about the ego, too. They say it's not inherently bad, but
It can become a problem when we over-identify with it.
right, like when we let it run the show. So the goal isn't to eliminate the ego entirely, but more about becoming aware of it and how it operates.
Exactly. It's about noticing when it's running the show and then making a conscious choice to align with your higher self instead.
Can you give us some examples of what these ego triggers might look like in everyday life?
Sure. Imagine you get a critique at work, right? And your immediate reaction is defensiveness or self-doubt. That's the ego talking.
It's like that knee-jerk reaction.
Or let's say you see someone who's having a lot of success and you're hit with that wave of envy or comparison,
That's the ego again.
trying to keep you small, right?
Yeah.
Keep you playing it safe.
It's like all those little voices in our heads that tell us we're not good enough, not worthy.
Exactly. And they can be so loud and persuasive. But, the more you become aware of them,
The less power they have.
exactly.
So this is really about making a conscious choice.
It is. Instead of reacting from that place of fear or insecurity, you can choose to respond from a place of love, wisdom, and compassion.
That is powerful. So we're reclaiming our power by realizing we have this choice in how we respond to these triggers.
Exactly. And that's where the real transformation happens.
I love that. It's not about being perfect. It's about recognizing those patterns and making a different choice.
You got it.
Welcome back to the show. We're wrapping up our deep dive into the higher self.
It's been such a fascinating exploration.
It really has. We've talked about so much grounding our divine team, strengthening our intuition, visualization, meditation. Oh, and those pesky ego triggers.
So many powerful tools and practices to help us connect with that inner wisdom.
Absolutely. But there's this one thing the alchemist mentioned that I've been thinking about. They said that things can get a little weird as we start to actually embody our higher self. What do you think they meant by that?
Yes, the weirdness. I think they're talking about how, as we align with our higher self, our perception of reality can start to shift.
Okay, give me an example. What kind of weirdness are we talking about?
Well, it could be anything from experiencing heightened intuition, like you just know things you logically shouldn't, to synchronicities that seem almost too good to be true.
Like when you're thinking about someone and then they call you out of the blue.
Exactly. Or maybe you start seeing repeating numbers everywhere, or you have these vivid dreams that feel incredibly prophetic.
Okay, I can see how that could be a little unsettling for some people.
Definitely. It can be disorienting at first. But the alchemist really emphasizes the importance of non-judgment. Like, as we expand our consciousness, we're bound to encounter things that seem strange or unfamiliar.
So instead of freaking out, we should approach those experiences with a sense of curiosity.
Exactly. The more we resist those experiences, the more we block that flow of energy, those higher frequencies.
Right. And it makes me think about what Sydney Smith was saying about trusting our intuition. Maybe these weird experiences are just our intuition expressing itself in these new ways.
I love that. I bet the alchemists would agree. They see the higher self as not just the source of wisdom, but also this powerful, creative force.
So it's not just about passively receiving guidance, but about actively co-creating our reality in alignment with our higher self.
Yes. The alchemist describes it as a dance between the creator and the creation. It's constantly evolving, constantly expanding through these experiences.
Wow. So we're not just along for the ride. We're active participants.
Exactly. And that brings us to this key concept from the alchemist, aligning our will with the will of our higher self.
What does that mean exactly?
It's about surrendering that ego's need for control and allowing your higher self to guide you. It's that trust that you're being guided toward what's truly best for you, even if it doesn't always make sense from our limited human perspective.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Especially in a society that's always telling us to hustle and strive and control everything.
It is a practice, not a destination. But the more we align with that higher self, the more we experience that peace, that fulfillment that comes from surrendering to that wisdom that's bigger than our own limited understanding.
Like we're stepping out of the driver's seat, letting our higher self take the wheel.
Beautiful analogy. And, the journey might not always be smooth. There might be bumps in the road, detours.
But it's The alchemist says it's a path worth taking.
It is. The rewards of aligning with your higher self are immeasurable. You tap into this deeper well of wisdom, love, power that exists within each of us.
It's about creating a life that's truly aligned with your soul's purpose.
Exactly. And if you're feeling inspired to dive deeper into this, etherealenergeticvibes.com has a ton of resources to support you on your journey.
And don't forget about Sydney Smith's Spirit of Air program if you're looking for a more in-depth experience.
So remember, aligning with your higher self, it's an ongoing journey. It's full of discovery and growth. Trust your intuition. Don't be afraid of the weirdness. Enjoy the ride.
So well said. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive on the Divine Frequency online podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to exploring with you again soon.